Right. Welcome, welcome.
Cool.
Um, I want to first highlight your new publication
Well, thank you.
because
I
that is a huge accomplishment and it's been in press for how long now?
it's been impressed since it was accepted in December 9th. So this is actually part one of my dissertation. So let's say I had finished my dissertation in like when did I finish my dissertation? Geez, the summer of 2025. Right, end of the summer of 2025. Then I submitted it probably November. So it's been a while. So now it's February 11th. It got finally published February 6th. Interestingly, the morning of February 6th, I emailed because they had already sent me like a thing that said like, this is pretty much done. We're just making sure this is right. And I said confirmed. I waited a week and I was like, hey, when is it coming out? And then they emailed me, oh, it should come out soon. The second guy emailed me, it should come out today. And then it came out today. So stay on their behind,
Yes.
people, when it comes to this kind of stuff. But that being said, this is my new publication with Richard M. Cabina Jr., Richard M. Cabina Jr., Measuring and Change in Private Behavior, a review of precision teaching interventions for inner behavior. So I took 10 studies and did a literature review on them and their studies where individuals measured thoughts, feelings of individuals. They counted discrete instances or taught individuals how to count those discrete instances across a day, and then did a frequency building exercise for 1 minute where they counted like positive feelings and they tried to see how many they can get in that 1 minute. And then they saw that consistently after that intervention, the undesired behavior decelerated, its bounce or variability shrunk, and or there was a level change, so that it went from a higher level to a lower level. So we can see all these metrics, especially when you use the standard acceleration chart. You can quantify those metrics, which is really important. And I did that, and this is like, I think, one of the best ways that we can really support radical behaviorism. As we know, methodological behaviorism says, hey, we can measure everything that we can see. If we can't see it, if it involves anything within the skin, then we can't measure it. Those are methodological behaviorists. Radical behaviorists say, hey, private events are subject to the same laws that outer behavior is, such as punishment and reinforcement and all of that. And Skinner was a radical behaviorist. And he said, we just need to figure out a way to do this. And precision teaching has had a way to do this for a long time. So I just came up with the literature review in my uh, dissertation. Then I published it. Now we're working on the publication for the actual study that I did during my dissertation. Interesting story behind this, real quick, is that you got reviewer one and reviewer two. Shout out to reviewer two, because reviewer two said that they didn't recommend it for publication, and they were overturned, or the person above them were like, nah, we think this has potential. So I mean, I appreciate that they stayed on and they still tried to give feedback, which I felt was really important and supportive and helped get it to where it is now. And I really feel like it's a stronger paper. But hey, they will try to stop you, but you got to keep on pushing through. And my actual study got rejected in a journal that was a school psychology journal, the Journal of School Psychology, or just School Psychology. And it was because it was a single case design instead
Right.
of a group design. So I mean, gonna go somewhere else. They had a few things that I wanted to change, and since this publication came out, now I want to cite it in my other paper to make it stronger.
Right.
So, I'm going to be submitting that soon so that I can get another publication out to get this information out. And I just really think it's an important way that we can actually engage with mental health and help and support mental health. It is not a replacement for going to therapy, typical therapy, but it is something that we can do within our field, within our scope, to be able to support mental health.
Right. Totally. I concur with all of that. I love it. I don't know what is up with the naysayer saying this is what But yeah, it's interesting that discussion of. I appreciate that background and that story, because it kind of speaks to when power actually works in your favor, which may not always be the case. But if you can get the powers that be on your side, you know, use that power when you have it. No one's going to blame you for that unless it's, exploitive, obviously. But I wonder also, as I've reviewed for journals before, I kind of challenge the double blindness of journals. And I'm not one to normally like love a good name drop or anything like that. In fact, I like generally roll my eyes at it. But when you say like Rick Cabina, I have never heard anything negative about Rick Cabina from any of his students or anybody who's worked with him or anything like that. And so when his name gets dropped, I'm like, ooh, that's so exciting. Like, it
Hmm.
actually impresses me. And so, if I were reviewing this and if I could see his name, that would create a good bias in my head of, oh, well, Rick Cabina is attached to this. And of course, your name as well, because I'm paired with positive reinforcers with you. But I would be like, ooh, I respect both of these individuals. This is going to be really good. So bias can be good, bias can be bad, whatever the case may be. But for what it's worth, like, and I will call out bad behavior analysts in the field. I will. Um, Kubina is not one of them. He ain't
No,
it.
not even
So
close.
I kind
Yeah.
of wonder if, that experience is similar. Like, have you peer reviewed as well? I feel like you have.
Yes, yes, I've peer reviewed. Two things real quick. One, everybody, I'm gonna close this out, but please download it. I paid a lot of money to make it free to access, open access, so please download this. Even if you don't read it, just download it because those numbers really mean something. So yeah, so I'm gonna close it out now, but you could just find it online for free. Um, but I have been a reviewer. I think that the double blind process is not the right way to do things. I actually talked to somebody who has been reviewing papers for so long that they reviewed papers back when it wasn't double blind, and she thought that that was a better way to do it. She's actually I found out she was actually one of the people that reviewed my paper
Oh, wow.
um, for this one. But the thing is, she was saying that like this double blind process really doesn't hold the reviewers accountable in a way because when your name is attached to it, the way that you review it, what you say, what you do, the decisions you make are more attached to who you are. Because you could try to remove as much bias as possible, but the
Right.
fact is you're going to have bias. Your history of reinforcement and punishment is going to connect that bias to you and all of the behavior and decisions you make. And it's the reason why you got to where you are now. So you can't divorce yourself from that bias. So we should acknowledge that bias. We should understand how it, changes our decisions, but we shouldn't act like we can simply be like, oh, no, I'm unbiased. I'm an unbiased observer
Right.
because there's no such thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, to your point about methodological versus radical behaviorism, if you get an old school, quote unquote, methodological practitioner and they see this thing on private behavior, they're instantly going to scoff and be like, okay, like what is this? This isn't science. This isn't the science. Same with like single case design versus group study and stuff like that. Even within our field, we're starting to branch out a little bit more into more of the statistical side of things and, quantitative over qualitative. And, there's definitely a lot of, yeah, back and forth within the field. And those divisions do not help. But for what it's worth, like, even with a simulated, I say simulated double blind because I've seen names when they
Hmm.
weren't intended to be shown to me. And
Hmm.
it didn't matter on my part because I didn't know who they were anyway. But if, let's just say, like, Rick Cabino would have been on one of them, I would have been like, oh, cool. I bet I'm really
Hmm.
going to love this. Or, like,
Yeah.
somebody who Niraba has called out in the past for harmful behavior, I'd be like, we are not accepting this. I'm not even going to read it because I'm not going to give this person a platform. So, yeah, that's a whole other possible discussion that we could have as well.
No, I agree. And one quick last thing I think about this paper is
Yeah,
I think
shoot.
it's very different in the sense that a lot of people don't have a history or understanding of how we can actually engage with this. So I
Yeah.
think that a lot of it being not accepted by that individual in the first place was probably their history of like, oh no, this is nothing we've ever done before, and it's like
Right.
we maybe something you've ever done before,
Yeah.
like, and there's a reason why these citations are in there. Like you can go look at them and then research them and understand them. So I mean, on the grounds that they said that I mean, I think that they should have at least, maybe I'm just, a little petty, little, close to it,
It's
but they
okay.
should have at least been like, hey, we can work on this paper for it to be able to
Right.
be published because this is important information to get out. And this could change the way that we do a lot of things.
Yeah.
But instead to say, nah, I mean, I don't know. To be
Right.
a no has to really hit a lot of things. Like even when I'm reviewing,
Right.
there has to be a lot of things for it to hit a no, because I'm like, I know how hard somebody worked. So
Yeah.
that's just my thing. If I
Yeah.
ever meet them and we talk about it, I'd be very interested to hear why. So then I could become a better writer and work on those things so that I don't do that in the future, you know? But I don't
Yeah.
feel like I'm able to do that without being able to have that conversation with that person, you know what I mean? And ask like more questions where it's just like, you reviewed it, you said you didn't like this, so I'm trying to change it. And then it goes through multiple back and forths, but I'm not able to actually be like, hey, I have these questions about your
Yeah.
feedback, you know?
Yeah, you can't really do that. And that's the thing. Like, you can follow up sometimes, and this is, for anybody who hasn't submitted to a peer reviewed journal, you can follow up, but you may not get response from the actual person because it'll go through the editor. If the editor even feels like
Mm-hmm.
passing anything along. But usually you'll have like the editor, and then you'll have reviewers who basically do all the grunt work for the editor. And then the editor will compile all of it. They'll kind of read the manuscript and they'll decide, okay, do I agree with them? Do I not agree with them? Am I going to override something? So maybe that context can kind of help if, people are not familiar with that process. But generally the editor holds the power. But the reviewers, we don't know who they are. Now we can guess. I've guessed some of mine before, and you know, I would actually challenge your reviewer who flat out said no to that to come on and we talk with that person. I would love
Yeah,
that.
that would be
So, like,
great.
wouldn't that be awesome? Like, I wonder if we
Yeah,
could, get the reach out to whoever reviewed, and they're probably
yeah.
not going to be listening to stuff like we put out because we are radical and like socially
And I think
justice
that
oriented, but
some of their my original, like, when you do reviews, a lot of your voice, when you get these reviews and people you have to edit, a lot of your voice gets taken out.
yes.
In the original version, a lot of my voice and by proxy Rick's, but I said, like, I did a lot of, maybe it might seem like ABA bashing, where I was like, in behavior analysis they don't do this, and that's a fact. They don't. And I said that, they don't use standard displays of visual,
Right.
standardized visual displays. And it was a lot of like, this is historically accurate, but they were like, we don't want to come off like that. We don't want to blah, blah, blah. And it's like as if this is a
Watch your tone,
representation of
Karen.
them more
Watch your
so than a
tone.
representation of me. Yeah. So I'm like,
That
I mean,
is
so a lot of my voice got taken out, and that's fine. If they want it to be a more neutral, whatever, I
it's not
totally
fun
get that.
though. Let's be real. That's
Yeah,
not fun.
yeah. So I mean, it is what it is. I mean, and I understand why they wanted that particular reviewer wanted that, but like I said, it just takes the voice of the author away, and then it kind of neuters it and sanitizes it into this thing so that it is,
There's a
you
whole thing
know,
with that though.
yeah,
But it's conforming to the professionalism standard that we said is based on white supremacy culture. And so that's
exactly.
what bothers me about it, because it's like not all of us are abled, not all of us are white,
Mm-hmm.
not all of
Mm-hmm.
us are methodological behaviorists, not all of us practice within clinical spaces for autistic learners. And so, like, anything that is out of that super square, rigid box, everybody
Mm-hmm.
else who practices, who doesn't fall into that, that's what we call gatekeeping. That's what we call
Exactly.
tone policing. That's where we have the issues of having suppression happen. And it happens to the people who we need to amplify the voices of the most because they're not getting through and they have really important work and, important things to say. And, as long as there's fact and there's evidence to support it, what's the problem? You know?
Exactly. And the problem is it's fighting and taking down and bucking against that white supremacy
It's
culture, because
threatening.
like it's part of the reason why I haven't even started writing this article I want to write for behavior and social issues about professionalism and calls for professionalism
Right.
being dog whistle for conforming to white supremacy culture. I would love to write that article, but I'm already thinking about it, and I'm like, then somebody that upholds white supremacy culture, whether knowingly or unknowingly, is going to read it. They're going to have to accept it to be reviewed, and then the
Right.
reviewers are going to have to decide to accept or deny it. So it's like it has to go through a lot of people that are already. So it's like, why would even spend the
Exactly.
effort and time to write this up?
Right.
And then that's why people make videos, and then and then they're gonna be mad that we made the video, and it's
Right.
like, come
Exactly.
on.
Oh my God, thank you for summarizing all of that so beautifully because that is exactly we resort to these measures because we don't have a choice. You're punished for doing anything novel. And this is something that I've been saying since I started trying to do the publishing academia game. And like anything outside of the norm, it's like, yeah, replication's great, but ultimately, like, how do we continue to advance? How do we continue to evolve? We can't if we just continue to beat the horse beyond recognition over and over again. So you're punished 100% for going outside of that realm unless you know the right people, unless you say it the right way. So, like, ABA is met with a lot of criticism. I come from the
Hmm.
disability side of things, and the criticisms are valid and they are expansive. And if you bring any of those to the table in an article, just to even talk about it in a way that gives any sort of space or weight to the arguments that are totally valid, it's a firm no. It's tone policed. It's, like we can't talk about it that way. Do y'all realize that's like what a cult does? Like, do you all realize that? Because, like, I study cults. I am, like, super into deviant behavior. That is step one of getting people to, like, believe in your whatever doctrine or your belief system or whatever the case may be. That's the first step is you don't talk bad about it. Like, what is it? The number one rule of Fight Club is we don't talk about Fight Club.
Yep.
That's what cults do.
Yeah,
Anyway, that's
and
my
and
soapbox.
that's how it protects its
Yeah.
its shape, its form from ever changing, right?
Yes.
So we don't see the change that we really want to see.
Right.
So that I feel very comfortable in that. I've said my piece and how I feel about it. I'm really happy that it came out. I'm really happy people are reading it. I'm getting messages and emails from people that want me to talk about it further. So I will
Yeah.
be going places to talk about it. And I really wanted to get out there, and I really want people to take it and run with it. Especially inner behavior in different areas. I heard somebody was interested in working with they have a clinic, and they want to work on burnout, and I'm like, yes, please. You know what I mean? And all the different types of areas. I heard somebody that has a client who's trans really wants to work on some of their inners, and someone who is gay wants to work on some of their inners. There's so many populations. It's really only done with in the literature, only done with white people who are neurotypical, who are likely, middle class. That's it. So we really need to investigate other demographics, and that's one of the limitations. And that would be really awesome and interesting to see.
Yeah, for sure. But this is actual social validity. Like, seeing the major life impact. Like, yeah, you can't observe my inner behavior, but I can, document it and everything. And so we do have that record. But, people will scoff at that and be like, well, it's not socially valid because I don't see it. Who cares?
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
that to me, it's more important that it helps the individual who's served. That's actual validity. That's
Yeah.
real social validity.
And,
I don't understand the argument against private behavior and
yeah, I mean, science isn't predicated on what we agree to be true. You know
yeah,
what I mean? It's this agreement is only a believability measurement. We don't need agreement for science to work, for science to be true, because science simply is. You know what I mean? And two people could also agree to something being true and that being incorrect. Like if two people take some, edibles and they both see purple cranes flying in the sky, just because
good.
they both agreed it to be true doesn't make it true. Like that's not
Right.
how science works. So we need replication in this area to further understand it and further support its validity. It's very simple once you understand how science works.
Yeah, well, it should be simple, but people make it not
Yeah.
as much. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
we got a lot of anger about all that. That's what I heard.
Cathartic.
It's a
Let it
lot.
out.
Yeah. This is our therapy as well. We vent and
Yep.
we go through the things that piss us off professionally and academically. Well, speaking of, challenges, so when we posted our episode on overall, the theme was defensive behavior. I know we tend to like talk around a lot of different things. We did get a comment on that video
Yay.
that I can share, and then maybe we can, talk to it a little bit. Charles Thomas, 3020, is the response to critiques a gut feeling or sounds like learned behavior? We all respond this way for the same reasons, unrelated to age. Let's view this as it appears in all our life activities. So,
So I think that context matters. Sometimes when you comment, what you can do is you can type in the timestamp, and then that helps us understand. Like if you put at and then 0332 colon or
super
semicolon
helpful.
32, and then you can actually that'll put the timestamp in because what this episode is probably like an hour long, so who knows what particular part you're talking about. But let's try to in response to critiques, a gut feeling or sounds like learned behavior. We all respond this way for the same reasons unrelated to age. Well, I mean, age gives you more opportunities to
Learning
have
history.
learning history, so the age does have a factor
Yeah,
in it. Yeah, and where you were in that age, like someone
right.
like Trump, he was around, living, experiencing two different water fountains, colored and white. So the
Gosh.
way that he might respond to things now might have, relations to that learning history.
Right.
So
What a
let's view it as it
response. It wasn't
appears.
that long ago, by the way. Like that is
Yeah,
so sick.
yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
So let's view this as it appears in all our life activities. What do you think?
Well, like you said, context matters, and I don't know if we're asking, just to kind of clarify and not to put words in your mouth, Charles Thomas 3020, but you're asking if it's basically respondent or operant behavior. So is it like inherent and something that we don't condition, or is it something that is conditioned by reinforcement and punishment and different contingencies in our environment? You know, I purely see it as operant behavior, and I don't see that as, you learn early on when a parent corrects you that, ooh, I did something bad, I disappointed my parent. If you're empathetic, you're going to pick up on that and you're going to realize that, well, a punishment also comes with that, or whatever, depending on the severity of the behavior and the impact it's had in the environment. So, I mean, as we go through time in our learning history, regardless of our age, we have those different contingencies appear in the form of our employers and in our school settings and all of the interactions that we have. And so criticism sometimes becomes a very bad thing. And so sometimes that fight or flight might get triggered by trauma or other factors. I don't know. I see it strictly as operant behavior. And in the relative context of what we generally talk about, we try to focus things on higher education. And so, like, when we talk about defensive behavior, we might focus more exclusively on our students when we give feedback or our responses to our end of term or semester surveys where, students might give us critique, what
Mm-hmm.
feelings might come up for those. If our chair has something critical to provide for us that could not only help us be better, but also something we should change. So yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know if you kind of see it
No,
similar or what, but yeah, feel free to
I
elaborate.
I tend to agree. One of the things that I've learned over my social media journey is that a lot of times I don't understand people's feedback or questions or comments
Right.
because I've like replied so quickly in just what I thought that they meant that they may have meant something totally different. So now I'm always questioning like what do you mean by that? Like give me more so that I could better understand what you're saying so I could respond in a way that's more accurate to what I think and how I feel. Because I just like I said, the journey has taught me so well that like not everybody that is responding to you in a way that you think might be XYZ is actually XYZ. And like a lot of times people will say things about a certain point in like a video or whatever and then like
Yeah.
since they didn't contextualize
Get
it, it
lost.
may not make sense to me. So I'm like,
Okay.
what part are you talking about? So, in response to the critiques of a gut feeling or sounds like learned behavior, is the response to critique a gut feeling or sounds like learned behavior? I think Charles Thomas, 3020, probably has opinion on what they think. So I would love to see, like, if you're willing to come back in the comments and like explain and flesh out what you think, what you saw, and then we could talk about it'd be like a talking about it because I'm like, hey, it seems like you're going somewhere with this, you know what I mean? To me, I like long comments because it really helps me digest what you're saying. And I really appreciate you engaging with us. This is our like first comment, especially the first one that we feel like highlighting and talking about
Looks like we've gotten some
because
other comments, but
yeah, yeah,
that's the stuff we want to share. Yeah,
exactly.
there's a lot of
You know,
toxicity on the internet, and that's real.
oh yeah,
Um,
yeah. I
but yeah,
YouTube is
definitely.
a special beast, but thank you very much, Charles Thomas 3020.
Yes, thank you. And feel free to elaborate. And I
Yeah.
really appreciate your experience in this area because I'm a little newer to the social media space and doing like public type platform stuff. It hasn't scared me away yet, which is good, but
Hmm.
I struggle with kind of understanding context sometimes anyway because of disability. And so, like, if you're saying, hey, I struggle with this, it makes me feel a little better and a little more valid because it's like, okay, I thought maybe it was just my communication disorder. So, no, maybe it's just a thing that is kind of common. So it doesn't make me feel as isolated and as strange. And so, safety in numbers, so to speak, I guess. So,
No, it
context
can be.
helps.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be so tough, especially when you got the comments flooding in and you want to respond or you're trying to understand.
Oh,
And I'm
for
like, are they
sure.
with me or are they against me? Like, you know
Yeah,
what I mean? And it's not always with or against, but it's like sometimes it's hard to understand where a person's coming from when it's a short
right.
comment on a video where you're trying to make a point. It's like, what point of the video were you trying to address? You know what I mean? So,
Hmm.
and then it's like you get them. You have a PhD. You should already know. And it's like that's not how that works.
I wish, if I
Yeah.
could just osmosis like every bit of knowledge in the world, that would be wonderful. But that's not what happens. You learn a certain area and you learn a specific field of study, and even then you don't know everything. So,
Yeah. And we gotta be, we gotta show that some of the times or anytime you don't know, you say, I don't know. and we can go through the journey together of looking it up, and I can show you how I acquire new knowledge. Or I can go to look to somebody else that might be a professional in that field, and they can ask them. I mean, because the whole point of our intellectual acumen and ability is to be able to ask questions, how to craft the question, and then how to go about answering it in a desirable way that helps us understand what is true in the real world. At least to my understanding of what it is. So it's not about knowing so much as being curious and figuring out ways to satiate and satisfy that curiosity to better understand how things exist in the real world.
Right. And I tell my students all the time, it's not necessarily about what you know, it's about the journey to get to what you learn. And so, like, critical thinking skills and being able to, like, find information and actually analyze the information to figure out if it's worth digesting the information, and just looking and knowing how to identify those factors is vital. And that I think that is more telling for students, especially through the journey. It's like, well, I still feel like an imposter. Well, you're not going to know everything, but what you do know are valuable tools to help you get to things you care about, things that bother you, things that you want to know more about. So that's the academic journey to me too.
Exactly, same. And I think that a big thing is like AI right now. Like a lot of students might feel like AI can support them in a lot of ways, and that's probably true. But when you're getting to a certain level of this academic journey, especially PhD and a lot of master's areas, the AI is not going to be able to generate the creative thinking that is required to be able to ask questions, to understand our research, to better be able to get to the next level. Like in my article, one of the big things that I realized was every single inner behavior intervention where they did a 1 minute timing to change private behavior, they always did only 1 minute timing per day, or at least some type of accumulation of only 60 seconds per day. Whereas in any other skill, academic, motor movement, whatever, when you do frequency building, you do more than one timing. Like when you do math facts, you don't just do it once and be like, okay, we'll try again tomorrow. No, you do it multiple times. You don't just shoot a basketball one time and be like, all right, practice is over. No, you do it multiple times. Oh, yeah. So if you want to build a better performance, then you have to practice multiple times within the same day. And I looked through the research, and AI couldn't tell me that. And a lot of times, AI's, if you're an expert in your field and you're like really understanding it, AI's not going to be right a lot of the time. And you can't know if it's not right if you don't know what is right. So while AI can be a useful tool in a lot of ways, when we're getting to these parts, it's not there at least yet. And I think that this is also an awesome way to flex your intellectual muscles and and think deeply about things, because sometimes you just got to sit there and think for a little bit and you'll figure it out.
Yeah. And practicing the pause is important. You kind of mentioned that in response to social media, but the pause is so vital for everything I'm learning. And that was one of the first things I figured out with getting student emails or getting comments on social media or like reading an article. My first gut instinct is not always the right one. And so, sitting in the pause, actually like reflecting on the information, it makes a huge difference. Sitting, going to do something else, and then coming back to that place has helped me tremendously. With digesting articles that I find hard to comprehend, like especially if I'm teaching like EAB or something like that, those articles are dense, and I struggle with some of those. And walking away, coming back to it, oh, I remember that. Okay, yeah, all of it's here.
Hmm.
I just didn't think it was here because sometimes your brain needs a minute. And so, what is it they say? Like, hindsight is 20/20 or whatever. Maybe that could be kind of applicable in this situation too. But practice the pause. Huge.
Absolutely, absolutely. You need for food, it needs to digest. For brain
Yes.
food, it also needs to digest. It needs to sit there and you need to think deeply about it. You need to make connections. Sometimes it comes quickly, sometimes it takes some time, and sometimes you're in the shower and you're like, Eureka! And I can't tell
Right.
you how many times I've been in the shower. I'm wet and I'm reaching for my phone because I gotta write something down in my notes
Yeah,
because I just thought
exactly.
of
What is
something.
this? Totally. I get mine when I can't sleep. That's when I get my ideas. That's where I got the idea for the skill assessment. That's where I got the idea for my Trump article. That's where I, like,
Hmm.
all these different random. I just like wake up out of a sleep. In fact, I think I dreamt about the skill assessment. Like, that's how messed up my brain can be. Sometimes it's like, hey, I'm going to introduce something from your subconscious into your sleep, and then you're going to translate it into like real life. But I think I had a dream where I was like back consulting, which I haven't consulted in years for the record. And I was like, all of these skill assessments are like old white guy ableist stuff. Oh my gosh, what if I just wrote my own? And then I woke up and I was like, holy crap. I'm
Hmm.
immediately texting my friend Al and like, let's do this. So like, yeah, dead of sleep, just full on. That's where I get those ideas. So mine is not the shower, mine is just the middle of sleep. So you'll find it though. Like it's different for everybody, I think.
Yeah, I think that for lack of a better term, that obsession, I share that with you because, like, when I was younger, I used to write a lot of poetry, a lot of raps. And when I was really going and my brain was really thinking, I wouldn't be able to sleep until I finished the rap or I satisfied it or I like ended it, right? And now it's more about scripts for stuff I want to talk about on social media or for research. So I'm sitting there in bed, lights are off, I'm just on my phone, and until I'm intellectually satisfied, I cannot sleep because my brain is going. And even then, when I'm when I feel like I'm supposed to be, it's still like there's little crumbs there that I'm still working on sometimes, and I always want to perfect it. But my thing is like, if I never put it out, I will keep on editing and keep on editing and keep on editing. So it's
Yes.
like you got to just put out something. It's not going to be perfect, but it'll get you to the next step.
I get so many students. I want to say like half of them are perfectionists and very similar to like you and I in that regard. And then the other half are very good at like letting things go. But the ones who are perfectionists seem to have the biggest hangups because they're like, well, I know it's not ready. I know it's not ready. It's like, just send it to me. Like, I
Hmm.
just want to see where you're at. Send me
Hmm.
what you have. Well, it's not ready yet. Okay, well, I want to meet you where you're at. And then we need to, you're never going to graduate if you don't learn to let some of this go. So just understanding like nobody's perfect.
Hmm.
That's so vital for anybody, but
I
especially
agree.
students going through masters and dissertation.
And that's such a thing that we have to that they have to unlearn in graduate school, that iterative process of progression where it's like I know this isn't perfect and this isn't the final, but I'm going to send it anyways. And sometimes like that might be what it's going to have to be for one of my papers that I turn in and submit for publication because I know we're going to go through feedback and all that stuff. So instead of just like trying to anticipate every single thing and keep on working on it, the truth is they're not going to have the background and knowledge that I'm presenting. So I just got to submit it, hope for the best, and if I don't get a desk rejection, which is where they just reject it before they even send it to the reviewers, if I don't get that and they send it to the reviewers, then I'm golden. I can work, and I know that okay, let's start the process. However many times we got to send it back and forth is however many times we got to send it back and forth till it gets done and published. And it's always worth it once it gets done and published. And for whatever reason, I have amnesia of the time between when I submit and when it gets published. And that's probably for the best.
Yeah, I do that too. There have been times that I've had multiple things kind of pending. Right now I don't, and so I feel
Hmm.
like I'm smooth sailing, but like I've had like three or four things pending at once, and it's just like, oh yeah, I forgot about that, which is probably good because then I'm not stressing myself out over it and worrying about like, well, is it, I have like, um, what is it, rejection sensitive dysphoria as part of like
Hmm.
my mental conditions, and it's like, well, there must be something wrong with me if like they haven't given me
Hmm.
feedback or whatever, and so completely relatable. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
like when I forget about things.
yeah. Same.
Goodness. Okay, so um, you want to talk about anything current, like Super Bowl? I know timing wise, we are going to be a few weeks out, so it won't be as relevant. But we just had Super Bowl on Sunday. It's the 11th of February, 2026. A lot of controversy around the halftime performance, I hear.
Yeah, so full disclosure, I hate football,
Same.
as a concept, as a practice.
As a
I can
business.
admit that the highlights are amazing. Cool, great, understood. It looks fantastic. We shouldn't be playing it, in my opinion. I mean, the CTE will tell you all that you need to know, and the way that they cover up the CTE will tell you even more than what you need to know. So that being said, not only was it a boring Super Bowl that was held in my city or area, but it was also the halftime show of Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny was it was incredible. I was like enamored with all the visuals. It was awesome to see the gradients of color and skin tones that were represented in the performance. I love that he didn't speak English. That was great, and he shouted out the Americas, and he shouted out pretty much all of the countries in the Americas to kind of show that, hey, America is not just the United States, which I think that a lot of people in the United States are propagandized into believing and into, having this nationalist idealism that is really false and often problematic, especially when it comes to being a member on the world stage and a member of the Americas. It was great. There were a lot of really cool moments. The song that he did last, "Barely at All," was my favorite. And I wish he had sung that one because that one make dang near makes me want to cry. And I was like, I don't even know what he's saying, but I feel it. I feel it. Um, but it was great, and I really am happy that people got to be represented and shown, and they got their culture represented. Like when the kid was laying on the chairs, like going to the different places that were like the little street tacos or the street whatever vendors and all that stuff, and like the trees representing like Puerto Rico and all this stuff. Like it was just immaculate in my opinion. And what Kendrick did for black people, I feel like Bad Bunny did very well for Puerto Ricans and the Latino Latinx community, however you want to identify as yourselves. And I can't say that for them. They'd have to say that for them. But I've heard them say that they felt seen. The only thing of critique that I would say that I've heard that I might kind of generate too is the idea that a lot of this representation quells rebellion from the community. So, like the representation of black people last year, that us seeing ourselves might make us feel good enough to not want to rebel or fight back against the government in ways that we probably should. And perhaps the ways that individuals in the Latino community, the way that they were represented, may have made them feel good in ways that prevent, stall, or withhold revolution in a way that it probably should, especially as it pertains to ICE. So I've heard that critique, and that I think warrants a little bit more investigation because I
Yeah.
think it's very interesting.
That's so interesting. I really appreciate you bringing that argument. And I could see that potentially being the case when somebody starts to feel safe, they let their guard down. And that is a really potentially valid argument, and I would not have considered that because that's not been an opportunity for marginalized groups in any capacity for what we do. So I would definitely give some snaps and some shout outs to whoever is picking those acts because they're not caving to social pressure. They are going all in. They have for years. I do support whoever's doing all of that, even though I'm not a sports fan. Hilariously published in sports studies, but do not do football, do not do basketball. Um, if you ever want me for trivia, I'm great with everything except for sports, probably. So you probably need to bring a sports person. Um, but yeah, I'm a big Gaga fan. I like her political perspective. I align with really well. I heard nothing but positive from all of my group about the halftime show. I did want to kind of bring some numbers to the table, which I have seen kind of estimates here and there about viewership. But
Hmm.
128 million viewers for the actual Super Bowl halftime show. I was kind of curious about the Turning Point All American halftime show, which was 5 to 6 million viewers, quite different. Um, but what really makes my life is that the Puppy Bowl ratings were between 11 and 12 million, so even they beat the Turning Point halftime show.
And it turns out I've read or I've heard that there were so many bots in the turning point that the number might be actually close to 1 or 2 million, and they couldn't stream on X, the Everything app, because they didn't get the licensing rights to the music. So I mean, it's just full incompetence. You know what I mean? That merit-based incompetence that you see consistently of them failing at every possible degree. You know, and they support like, oh, we don't want to see that Bad Bunny. You know, he's bad for the kids. So you're gonna have Kid Rock who
I
has
know.
lines about
Openly
liking
pedophilia
underage, yeah,
lines. Yeah.
women. Like what are we talking about here? And oh, you couldn't understand Bad Bunny, but bang bang boogie the up jump the boogie or whatever. I don't know what he says, but you know, it doesn't make any sense. But you know, racism never really happened.
No, it doesn't. Well, yeah, 100%. And like, I think that this speaks as to the importance of arts education as well,
Hmm.
because art is something that you don't have to understand the language for to understand why it's art. And so, it's like you were saying, I don't know what is being said. All I just know is that I'm really emotional about it because of the imagery that's presented with it and the way that, he is expressing the language and stuff like that. You can tell when you look at a painting, well, I mean, generally, it's funny, I can't read like human emotions on faces, but if I look at a painting, I'm like, ooh, there's torment, there's toil, there's
Hmm.
joy, there's whatever. And like, I can look at a painting and probably tell you everything about it, but that's just one of my interests. So, like, art doesn't have to have a specific language. In fact, it's more beautiful and it's more appreciated from my perspective if I don't understand the language. I don't know.
And I feel
Maybe
like
it's just me.
art is its own universal language at times. Like kind of like how they say math is a universal language. I would say that art is a universal language because like when I hear DMTF, I forget what the song is called by Bad Bunny about the photos. And like I wish we took more photos. I'm saying it in English because I don't want to, you know, butcher the Spanish. But like I heard it and I wanted to cry. And I'm like, let me look this up to really understand why I feel because it's like almost hype upbeat, but it's like it's got this somber emotion that really hits you at your core. And I'm like, what is this? So I investigated it more and I learned more about it. And I'm like, man, like that see that cuts across language barriers, and that's how art can be a universal language. And real quick, there's this quote that kind of goes to my point of what I was talking about with the stuff. So it's like they say, give them bread and circuses, and they will never revolt. So I mean, Jay Z is largely known as the one who picks the acts for right now for the last like little bit, and right now maybe he has like next 3 4 years. So he's the reason why we've been getting these kinds of acts instead of like because before him, it was a lot of times it was like legacy acts, like the Rolling
Uh,
Stones or whatever. And then, before that, like halftime shows weren't even a thing. Then In Living Color, which is like a black TV show, did something which really raised numbers. And then Michael Jackson came, and then that blew it out the water, right? So that's kind of how the evolution. So it's always been, you know what I mean, since it's been entertaining and popular, it's had culture in black roots. So, and the thing is, some people think that having that, like, it's like, what's her name? Not Diane Feinstein, but Nancy Pelosi kneeling with the kente cloth, doing representative BS instead of actually changing laws to make it safer for black people on the streets. Like it's kind of like that that some people view it. I wish we could have both. I mean,
hey, it shouldn't be that difficult, but here we are.
but there's a critique, and I'm interested in investigating.
Not to like completely shift gears, but like, can we talk about how Ricky Martin is a vampire?
Right? We were
Like,
all sitting around was like, "That's Ricky Martin. What? He looks so good."
I saw his picture and I was just like, is this still the 90s? Like, did I get in a time machine? And like, I don't know. And like Mario Lopez from Saved by the Bell. I know it's so random, but Saved by the Bell is one of my special interests. And so, like,
Hmm.
if I ever info dump about Saved by the Bell, just stop me.
Hmm.
But like Mario Lopez, he's like a vampire. He doesn't age.
Hmm.
Who is it? Paul Rudd. Like, what is with all these vampires among us? But like Ricky Martin is legit. He must be a
I
vampire,
Ricky Martin, I feel like he's been minding his business and
and that's
and
fine.
doing his own thing.
That's
I don't know if he
probably
was
why.
living La Vida Loca and maybe that's helping it, but I think that he just was minding his business, doing his thing, probably being a decent human somewhere. And then
Probably.
it's because I do not keep up on Ricky Martin. I'm
I
gonna be honest.
Yeah, same. I was just like, oh man, that is Ricky Martin. That's so weird.
Yeah,
Also, like, what has he been up to for 20 years? Like, it's so
for
weird.
real, for
But
real.
yeah,
We were all surprised.
well, like you were born in like the early 90s. So like you weren't like as aware of the 90s stuff. So to you, I'm kind of surprised. Well, like, he would have
He was on
maybe
Radio Disney. My parents always either
it's on
it was
radio.
like their channel or Radio Disney, for the
Really?
for the music. So like, I mean, I think he was on Radio Living La Vida Loca. I mean, especially here in California. You know what I mean? In the Bay Area, we have a large like Mexican Latino population. So I mean, I remember my first PE teacher, so much fun. Named Mario, and and he was great, and I still loved him to death. And every time it was recess, going out there, and he might be out there and just having so much fun. So I mean, I've always, that in Pacific Islanders and Asians, I've always been a lot of people around because it's the Bay Area. So I mean, yeah, I vividly remember Ricky Martin back in those days. Because I'm 92, I don't mind saying it. I'm 92, so he was still, doing his thing in the early 90s when I can remember,
I
or
say
mid
because like I was
90s, late 90s.
born in '84 and I don't remember the '80s, but I also don't remember many things about my childhood, which I guess is not normal. I don't know, but
I don't
I
remember a
do
lot
remember
either.
the '90s. Do what?
I said I don't remember a lot either. I forget people too, which is really bad because I just went to the concert and someone was like, "Hey, you remember me?" I was like, "Dang, I don't." But I said yeah. He never said his name, and I meant to go back to him to be like, "Hey, let me get your Instagram. Let's connect." And he gave me like free water at this concert, but I just felt bad because I was like, "Man, you're probably in high school that I knew you." I don't remember. I'm sorry. I switched high schools. I intentionally blocked out all of the memories of the high school I left,
Right.
and
Your brain protects you sometimes,
yeah.
and that way. But yeah, that's. I have that facial blindness. Unless I like see somebody consistently, like I don't recognize
Hmm.
people. And like the age progression technology that sometimes you do in like true crime stuff amazes me because it's like, how the heck can you like figure out what someone should look like chronologically? And like it blows my mind. But anyway, there's no way I could possibly remember somebody from a huge part of my history, and then to like have the aging process on it. So like I'm glad I don't live near my hometown any longer, because like if I were to run into somebody at the store, I'd be like, this is going to be uncomfortable for everybody, so are you sure you want to do this?
Yeah, I'm just confident that if I walk around, I have longer hair, I'm a little bit more meaty, I'm not that skinny, gangly kid. So hopefully I hope people don't recognize me out. The only time people recognize me now is at conferences, and then I'm
Well, I
sorry
was
if
going
I
to say,
don't
you're on social
recognize
media.
you.
Do people like out in the wild not recognize you ever?
Um, the thing is, I'm in social media spaces that are not like, you know, I don't do like the fun social media where I'm like, hey guys, or watch this. I'm more of a, here's some history, here's a lesson, here's something that you're gonna learn. And people don't come to social media for that typically. So I'll people will notice me at conferences, not typically out in the streets.
Listen, history's more fun than hey kids. It's just not. But I read nonfiction. Like I'm
Yeah.
boring, I guess. Like
And
whatever.
also sometimes I wonder like I don't know if I would follow me. Oh, I guess I would for the inner
Like follow
behavior
you.
and but like sometimes I'm like a lot of my feed isn't exactly me. Like at least on TikTok, I'm going to TikTok for the giggles. For Instagram, it's definitely curated more for like higher brow, intellectual, social justice type stuff. And I worked very hard to intentionally like get away any of that like anything that was racist, homophobic, anything that was just like girls jiggling. I learned how algorithms work, so I was like, as soon as I see it, I don't
Yeah.
want that on my stuff. You know what I mean? Because like if you stand over, especially a straight male, and look at it and watch them scroll, what comes on their feed is a reflection.
Yeah.
So anytime you hear people complaining about something being on their feed, a lot of times they're telling on themselves. Not
Right.
every time, because the feed will definitely try to, introduce you to new things. But a
Mm.
lot of times, like I saw this guy that I'll tell you after, he was like on Facebook, why does Facebook keep on giving me ads on hot single girls in my area
Yeah, I don't
and mail
know.
order brides?
Well,
Hmm. Targeted ads, bro. Targeted ads.
it's why like all the people who have been named in the Epstein files are like accusing people who are clearly not engaging in these acts of the acts that they've been caught engaging in through the files. Like an
Exactly.
accusation is sometimes a confession.
Especially
So,
with them over there.
yeah. Oh man, that one's been heavy. That's what all of my feed is right now on TikTok. It's just the Epstein files and an occasional cat video, and then maybe like a gardening thing because I'm starting a garden. So it's
Two
depressing.
two things. One, I think you said gardening last time. When you say gardening, a lot of times nowadays people think
Yeah,
gardening is used for yeah. So
yeah,
just to be clear, she actually means in this case actual gardening
like
because
planting tomatoes in the ground,
yes, yes,
gardening.
yes,
I'm
yes.
okay with both though,
Yeah,
obviously.
same.
As
But
a person in a legal recreational state, I'm pro
yeah,
whatever.
no. Yeah, no. Just clarifying for the audience
Thank
because
you.
you have to do that because you could be talking about corn and people are like,
I don't
"What are we
know.
talking about?"
Maybe we should omit some context too, like, as comments are left for us on social media and stuff, and keep some of that mystery going. And then,
Yeah.
you know,
One of the best ways to get engagement is to make a minor error in your videos. Like, I'll say
oh,
one thing wrong,
one
the comments will
small.
be flooded
No, I
in that,
can't handle
and
that.
like And sometimes I'll do it on purpose just because I know it, but sometimes I'll do it on accident and I'll say it's on purpose. So it can't be perfect.
No, well, and that's the thing. Like, I think people sometimes mean well with that, but comment good things too, folks. Like, I try to, if there's like a follower, I comment on a lot of your stuff because it's like,
Hmm.
hey, this is cool. I love this. Yes.
Yeah.
But like, I try to do that because I don't want my comments to just be like critical, and I don't want them to just be negative. And, send people good stuff too, because like, the people who are making the content, and I say this now as a creator,
Hmm.
we want to know what we're doing well, as well as how we can improve. It would be
Yeah.
super awesome.
My engagement with content has changed so drastically,
Domestically, yeah.
dramatically
Mhm.
after becoming a content creator because like now, like I will begin to say something critical or even sometimes borderline mean, and I'll be like,
Yeah.
would I want to see that as a creator? No. I can say nothing at all. I can say something kind. Sometimes I just say like, love the content, or I love this, or great
Mhm.
work, or just hands clapping. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Because sometimes it's just that. You know what I mean? That really changes things for people. So like, comment, and subscribe. I've heard like it really helps when you tell people to like, comment, subscribe, hype the video on YouTube. It actually helps. So we have to say that every single time.
Thank you for the reminders. What is it? Like, comment, subscribe. I need to get better at that.
Hit that
Flip the
like
Twitch,
button, smash that subscribe button.
flip the Twitch gamers. Oh my gosh, I love it. So yeah, with enthusiasm, I also reiterate that. Uh, but I love it. Thank you. With
Yep, copy
enthusiasm, as I say
paste,
this as dull as possible.
copy
You're the
paste,
personality
caps
hire
lock.
here. So, like, clearly, you're
I
the
got it.
personality hire versus myself, who is just kind of here to be like, wah wah.
No, no, you're doing great. This is a great collaboration in my opinion, and I really enjoy it.
I love it. You're bringing a lot of really cool things to the table, too. I swear once my house is in, like, the hippie witch state that I finally want it to be, I will bring some stuff to the table as well. But I love it. I think that it's a good balance of conversation and perspectives. That's so important right now, too. But yeah, so.
Same.